Hey guys, welcome back to New World Carpentry Solutions, and in this video we'll be using a Kreg jig to actually drill out all of our cabinet handles. But one thing I like to do is actually just set up a piece of tape on the actual door itself and kind of scribe where my blinds need to be and also find center of the door. This jig actually has an adjustable fence on the back side that will allow you to get the jig centered on the style. But to get your right height as far as verticality, to make sure your holes are being drilled in the same place each time, I like to actually add a piece of tape that is directly onto my jig itself. And then once I have my bottom hole lined up with the mark that I scribed for the bottom hole, then I can actually use that piece of tape to make a reference mark from the top side of the rail. What that enables me to do is to actually take the same jig, place it directly on the cabinet, because I know the fence has me lined up center on the style, and I have a mark on the jig itself that actually references the top side of the rail. As long as the jig is placed firmly up against the cabinet door and my reference mark lines up with the top side of the bottom rail, I know my jig is in the exact same place each time I go through drilling my holes. I do need to actually grab one of the Kreg face frame clamps. So I was using this quick release DeWalt clamp for a while. I am able to do it, but it's not as sturdy as I like it to be. I later switched to some spring clamps just because they're a little bit easier to maneuver on this jig. But one thing I can say is that I know the face clamps from Kreg, especially one of the deep reaching ones, will make this process go a lot easier because you know your jig is held in there firmly. I already know I can place it in the right place, but you know, if I start drilling and the jig moves at all, that kind of releases the reliability of it, which is why I definitely recommend clamping them in place. You don't really want to go, you know, free-handed, just trying to palm it up there and make sure that it doesn't move, because that can lead to some mistakes. You don't want to fill any holes on these cabinet pulls or anything like that. You want to get this pretty much right on the first try. You want to also be careful as you're drilling through, not to have a huge blowout on the backside. So using a sharp bit is also extremely important, especially when you're dealing with cabinets that are MDF. I found a few of them where the door panels are solid MDF, and when you drill from the front side, you get a terrible blowout on the back side that the screw itself doesn't cover. So take your time as you're drilling, make sure your bits are sharp, and you'll get a nice clean install for your handles. Another thing that we're going to do in this video though is also install the handles for the drawers themselves. And in this case, that turned out to be a little bit more tricky because of the size of the drawer fronts. This jig actually doesn't have the ability to set up for center directly in the middle of them. So one thing I decided to do was take the fence completely off the jig, because I believe these go up to about a 5, maybe a 6-inch offset. And these drawers, I believe, were tall. No, I was able to do the top drawer and the middle drawer. The bottom drawers on the other cabinets actually end up being too large for me to use the jig in this fashion. But essentially, it's the same thing as the doors. I want to get the jig or the fence lined up to be centered on the drawer front. But on the larger drawers that I do on the other side, pretty much the fence can add lower or raise far enough to get me centered there. So actually, I think it's this one. Yep, I ended up taking the fence off completely and then taking my measurements, and actually luckily lined it up to where if the jig is perfectly flush with the top side of the drawer front, the stiles and rails, the pins are centered on the drawer. But sometimes if you're not as lucky to get that type of layout to where, you know, your jig actually lays out perfectly like that, you may have to actually put a piece of tape across the top side of your drawer front, make a reference mark, whether it's an inch, half-inch down, whatever you need to do, and then line your jig up with that, clamp it in place, and then go into driving your holes. But if you guys have enjoyed this process, definitely let me know down in the comments. If you guys have any questions, leave me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.